There's a silent killer, a silent disease, quietly bankrupting the most ambitious people in our generation. It doesn't look like poverty. In fact, it looks exactly like wealth. It looks like having those designer labels featuring in VIP sections and driving those brand new luxurious cars. But as financial expert Vivian Tu so bluntly puts it, if you're not actually rich, you go broke trying to build a perception for yourself so that other people can think that you're doing better than you actually are. Welcome back to Future Foundations. Today we are having a very frank conversation. We are going to talk about the financial and the psychological costs of performing success. We are going to tackle the car you bought to prove a point, the career you chose just for applause, and the immense unspoken pressure of the black tax that keeps so many first-generation world builders stuck in the middle. And so, if you've ever felt the pressure to prove to yourself, to your hometown, to your family, or to the internet that you've made it, this episode is for you. So let's build. Let's start with the ultimate symbol of having made it. That's the luxury car. Remember Morgan Housel, who is a brilliant financial psychologist. He tells a story about his time working as a valet at a high-end motel. He would watch people drive in their Ferraris and Porsches, and he realized something really profound. When people see a Ferrari drive by, they almost never look at the driver and admire them. Instead, they stare at the car and imagine themselves in the driver's seat. Think about the tragedy in that. You spend money you barely have to buy an object that you think will bring you respect and admiration, but it almost never does. You buy the car to get respect, but the world ignores you and admires the car instead. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money, so he says. You see, we live in an era where the screen in our hands gives us a kind of unfettered access to private jet wealth. Vivian Tu reminds me of something. In our parents' generation, you only compared yourself to the guy next door. And today, the 2x4 screen in your hands inflates your aspirations and anchors your reality to an unattainable illusion. Dr. Olumide, whom I often refer on this podcast, refers to this using an old Texan phrase: big hat, no cattle. You have a massive hat that is very visible to the public, but you don't have the assets that are backing it up. We see this constantly with high-earning professionals. You could be a high-income earner or an executive making hundreds of thousands a month. You live in a gated estate. Your kids go to private schools. But at the end of the month, your net worth is zero because you've bought liabilities and not assets. Remember the simple definition of the two. An asset puts money into your pocket. Liability takes money out. If your entire paycheck goes towards maintaining a lifestyle to impress people, you don't have freedom. You're wearing what I usually call the golden handcuffs. If I should quote Vusi Tembekwayo again, he says, "Money talks and wealth whispers." True wealth is that first-class upgrade you declined, the watch you didn't buy, and the investment portfolio that nobody sees on Instagram or social media. So how do we get here? Why are so many ambitious, intelligent people stuck in this trap? In my opinion, it's because the status game tells you three lies, and if you believe them, you spend your entire life performing success instead of building. The first lie is the illusion of what society looks like. Society tells you success is visible. The nice car, the designer clothes, the expensive dinners you post on Instagram, those are symbols of spending, not symbols of wealth. Morgan Housel again, wealth is what you don't see. It's the cars that you didn't purchase, the clothes you not bought, the upgrades declined. Wealth is invisible. You're chasing the performance of success instead of building actual wealth. The second lie is the thought that everyone else has it figured out. You look around and everyone seems to be living well, nice homes, great vacations, new cars. You assume they are doing better than you. But in reality, most of them are broke. They are financing the lifestyle. The average luxury car buyer, the person with the $5,000 a month in rent might be one layoff away from a disaster, and we never see that. You're competing against people who are also pretending, and the cost of pretending is financial fragility. Thirdly, you believe your wealth is tied to what you own. You internalize the belief that your value as a person is measured by your possessions. The better your stuff, the more valuable you are. But this also means you never feel enough. There's always someone with a bigger house, someone with a nicer car, a better vacation. Now, these three lies work together. They tell you success is visible, that everyone else is winning and you're not. And that makes you believe that your worth depends on your possessions. And if you truly believe in them, you spend most of your life bleeding money to impress people who aren't even paying attention to you. So let's talk about what this game is actually costing you. And I like to look at this in concrete numbers. First of all, every dollar you spend performing success is a dollar that can't work for you. You're trading long-term freedom for short-term validation. It's already gone. Now let's do the math. Say you have an $800 a month car payment for 5 years. That equals $48,000 spent. That's $48,000 invested at 8% return over 20 years becomes $223,000. So if you look at it, you've just traded about $250,000 of your future wealth for 5 years of looking successful. And if you're like me, that car doesn't look impressive anymore by the second year. Was the approval worth it? Secondly, the bigger the lifestyle, the more you have to work to sustain it. A story is told of a lawyer earning hundreds of thousands a month, driving flashy cars, living in an expensive estate, but starting every single month at net zero. They look rich, but they're in chains. You took the job with the longer hours because it paid more. You need the higher salary to cover the mortgage on the house you bought to impress people. Your stuff owns you. Number 3, living above your means creates constant anxiety. You're one bad month away from missing a payment. You can't take risks because you're trapped by obligations. Now, the irony is that you bought these things to feel successful, but instead they make you feel stressed. And lastly, the money you're spending on status is money your children won't inherit. You're consuming your future to impress people in the present. There's a guy, Chris Ball, who is a financial advisor, and he has a simple test. He says if you claim to want freedom, but your bank account shows 20% of your income going to a depreciating car lease, your bank account reveals what your actual value is, and that's flexing. Now, I want to address a very specific group of people. If you're a first-generation wealth builder, an immigrant, or someone who watched their parents struggle, this is for you. And I'm only bringing this because I also fit in those boxes. You're not just building for yourself. You're carrying the weight of an entire family's expectations. Your parents sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. They probably worked multiple jobs, lived a frugal life with delayed gratification so that you could have a better life. And now you feel obligated to prove it was worth it. So you go ahead to buy a nice car so that your parents can be proud when they visit. You take the prestigious job even if it pays you less in its classification, because your family understands the title and not the actual job. You rent the expensive apartment in a very good neighborhood just so that you can show that you've made it. You avoid entrepreneurship because you feel like starting a business sounds risky, especially to people who value security. Now, what's the cost? You're making life decisions to meet someone else's definition of success, not your own. But here's where it gets even more complicated. You feel like you owe your parents. They sacrificed, so now it's your turn to give back. I see a lot of humor in that. I understand that completely. But here's what happens. You start sending money home, you cover bills for extended family, you become the ATM for cousins, siblings, relatives who need help. And you can't say no because, well, how can you say no after everything they did for you? This is what is commonly known as the black tax, the financial obligation that first-generation world builders feel to support their families. It's not just about sending money back home. It's about funding your siblings' education, covering parents' medical bills, supporting relatives who are struggling, being the family's safety net. The truth about these habits, which many do not yet have the courage to say out loud, is that it's bankrupting your future. I want to be very clear about something, and I always say this. You cannot act as a breadwinner for every single person in your extended family. If you're going to navigate this successfully, you must treat yourself as a company. Think about it. When a company pays its monthly utilities and rents, it also sets a strict budget. If you must, you need to set aside a specific account for family support. Whether you fund it monthly or quarterly, when that money is depleted, the budget is closed. If you do not establish these ironclad boundaries, your resources will constantly flow backward, and you'll never be in a position to build lasting dignity for your own future. This explains why so many people, after several years of toiling, they still have nothing to show for it. So just like the oxygen mask on an airplane, you have to secure your own financial stability first before you can effectively help anyone else. Now, many first-generation builders are stuck in the middle. You carry the heavy trauma of your parents' sacrifices. You feel this intense, crushing obligation to retroactively return the favor, often acting as a palliative care system for your parents rather than building a solid foundation for your own children. We need to reframe this completely. If you ask any genuine parent, their greatest prayer is that their children will rise above them and do better than they did. In the school of wealth, your children shouldn't be viewed as the next generation waiting in line. They are the rising generation. And so by sacrificing your own critical wealth building phase to pay back the past out of guilt, you're actually robbing your children of the head start which your parents desperately wanted you to have. Honor your parents, honor their sacrifices, but not by paying them back every cent they spent on you, but by ensuring their grandchildren never have to start all over again. Your parents didn't sacrifice so that you could become the family ATM. They sacrificed so that you could have options, so that you could build generational wealth that breaks the cycle of struggle. But instead of building forward, you're being pulled backward. You're stuck in survival mode for multiple generations, supporting the past while neglecting your future, neglecting the future of your children. So how do we get out? How do you stop playing a game that's been bankrupting you? The first shift is to redefine your scorecard. Stop measuring success by what you own. Start measuring it by what you control. New metrics. How many months could you live without a paycheck? That's your freedom number. What percentage of your income is working for you through investments and assets? Could you walk away from a job tomorrow without panic? That's sovereignty. Secondly, set boundaries with family obligations. This is most likely the hardest thing to do. You can support your family without destroying your future, but you have to set boundaries. Decide what percentage of your income you're willing to allocate to family support and stick to it. You're not being selfish, you're being strategic. Keep in mind that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Thirdly, practice strategic invisibility. The wealthiest people you ever notice are often invisible. They drive normal cars, they live in modest homes, they don't perform. The freedom in invisibility, when no one knows what you make, there's no one to impress. You're free to allocate capital towards wealth and not constantly thinking about status. Then also evaluate yourself by doing the 10-year test. Before any major purchase, ask, will I regret this in 10 years? The expensive car you're considering, will it matter in 10 years? Of course no. It will already be worth about 30% of what you paid now. The money invested instead, will it matter in 10 years? Optimize your future self, not your current ego. So where do we go from here? How do we transition from being consumers of applause to investors in our legacy? It requires a brutal account of what you actually value. Show me your bank account and I'll show you where your heart is. You can tell me all day long that you value freedom, legacy and sovereignty. But if I look at your bank account and see that 20% of your income is going to a depreciating car lease and another 20% is going to maybe a VIP treat, designer clothes, then I'll know the truth. I'll see that your bank account is revealing what you truly value, which is flexing. You cannot build generational wealth if you're passing down generational debt. You cannot build an empire if you possess the toxic habit of buying things with money you don't have to impress people you don't even like. Here's what I want you to know. You have You have permission to stop performing. You have permission to drive a normal car. You have permission to say no to family obligations that are bankrupting your future. You have permission to build wealth very quietly instead of loudly performing success. Your parents didn't sacrifice so that you could impress strangers. The sacrifice was so that you could have freedom. Honor that sacrifice by building something that lasts. Stop playing their game and start playing yours. This is Future Foundation. Let's keep building quietly and powerfully.